بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us the sincere intentions, to grant us the correct understanding, and to bless our gathering, our listening, and to bless what results from what we hear, insha'Allah. We hope to come out of this session having considered something new, insha'Allah, or having developed a way of looking at a certain aspect of life in a way that we had not considered before. And this is the objective, to benefit from the sayings of Al-Hafiz Ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah ta'ala, this famous scholar. So continuing in his book, Saydul Khatir, Capturing Thoughts, he said, or rather we start now with a new chapter, التفكر في عواقب الدنيا, reflecting on the consequences of the world. Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah said, من تفكر في عواقب الدنيا أخذ الحذر ومن أيقن بطول الطريق تأهب للسفر. Whoever reflects on the consequences of this worldly life takes precautions. Whoever thinks about the different events in this life and looks at what the results of those events are. For example, a person is afflicted with a calamity, perhaps in their children. One of their children who they raised using all of the means that the Prophet ﷺ taught them about. They fed them halal. They taught them good manners. They made them respect the elderly. They made them have mercy on the young. They taught them when to speak and when not to speak, how to sit, how to be organized, how to prioritize, how never to be late, how to put forward religious matters first always. They taught them very, very well. But then, for example, their children mixed in with the wrong group of people. Sometimes it's just that one person that was raised in an improper manner or that went off the rails, that can nudge another person, nudge another child who is on al-jadda, on that straight path, and it causes them to divert onto a path to the side, to a dark path with dark consequences. So whoever reflects on something like that, on the effects of bad company for one's child or for one's self, man minna yaslam, who amongst us is safe, who amongst us has the strength to fight the fight without using the means, who of us can get so close to the red line and still be safe. Ibn al-Jawzi will talk about that also. So he said, whoever reflects on the consequences of this worldly life takes precautions. Like I said, there are many events in this worldly life that one thinks about before they occur, thinks about the results of them. Secondly, the one that thinks about the hereafter, and that this life is a bridge across to the hereafter. And the way that you perform in this life, the way that you do in this exam, it will bear major consequences to how you end up and where you end up in the hereafter. So he says the one that reflects on these consequences, if I do this, if I do haram, then it's not going to look good for me in the hereafter. As opposed to if I do halal, if I do the obligations and I do more good, I show my devotion to my love for Allah, my Creator, then this will insha'Allah be good for me in the hereafter. Whoever reflects on the consequences of this worldly life takes precautions, makes sure they do extra things to be extra safe. Like when you're wanting to tie two things together, you have the rope, you want to tie these two pieces together. You tie around it once, you tie around it twice, you tie around it a third time, and you tug at it, and then you think, shall I knot it now? You think, precautionarily, let me tie it with a fourth tie. So you loop it around a fourth time and then you tie the knot. Why that extra precaution? Because you fear the consequence of it coming loose. You fear that consequence, that if I don't do it this fourth time, then perhaps it will become loose. So let me do it one more time. حتى أحكم إغلاقه حتى أربطه ربطا محكما, so that I can tie it in a very strong way. This is a person taking precautions. We learn in this life about so many things. So many things. You're just going to the car which is in front of your house, and you know that at this time of night there are people that will burst into your house, thieves. So what do? You think to yourself, if I just shut the door, not close it, I leave it slightly open and I go to my car, that's a risk. So what should I do? Let me take my precaution. I have my family inside. I have my wife and my children inside. I have valuables inside. What do? You shut the door, and to take by extra precaution, you might even lock the door. Then you go to your car, which is in front of the house. But here you've taken by precaution. Why? Because you reflect on the consequences of matters. إلى حد سواء, يعني to a suitable degree, of course. He said, من تفكر في عواقب الدنيا أخذ الحذر ومن أيقن بطول الطريق تأهب للسفر. And whoever is certain of the long journey ahead prepares for the travel. He's of course talking about the journey that will lead to the destination of the hereafter. Whoever knows with certainty and is not complacent, is not haphazard, is not reckless, this person who has in the foreground the hereafter, they will prepare for the travel. Just as when you want to travel to a destination, you pack with you sandwiches or a drink. You make sure that you've got an extra tire in case you pop a tire, in case you have a puncture. You make sure you have water with you and other tools that will aid you on the way. You will make sure you have blankets with you in case you have to stop on the side of the road. You make sure you have your card with you or cash with you in case you want to get more petrol on the way or you need to buy snacks. You make sure you take a route where there is a service station where you will stop off to go to the bathroom, for example. You make sure that you stop at certain times to pray. The one who knows, the one who is certain of a long journey takes precautions. We are all certain about death. So we all must take the precautions that will give us the best result after death. Then he said, ما أعجب أمرك يا من يوقن بأمر ثم ينساه ويتحقق ضرر حال ثم يغشاه وتخشى الناس والله أحق أن تخشاه. How strange is your affair, ya fulan. How strange, how perplexing is your affair, your state. O you who is certain of something, i.e., death, and yet you forget it. How strange is that? O you who knows the harm of a situation, like the haram, yet plunges into it. You fear the people, while Allah is more deserving of your fear. How strange is your affair, that you know about the certainty of death, and yet you go along life, plodding along, forgetting about it, entertaining yourself with games here, entertaining, laughing and joking, being excited about the jest when it comes to, let's say, sports or food, eating and cooking and all these extravagant distractions that are more than what is necessary, like for you to eat a certain amount, things that fill the belly but are not necessarily extravagant or excessively delicious. Likewise, activities of exercise by which you take care of the body, excessively doing that for long periods of time, not moderately, but long periods of time, where you might even be missing a prayer or missing something more important that relates to your hereafter, like attending a religious lesson, like taking notes, like going to meet your family members, keeping silatul rahim, the ties of kinship. O you who knows, but what do? You distract yourself. You forget about death and you forget about the obligations. One of the poets, he mentioned a verse of poetry which means that you put obstacles in your way. You know that death is scary. When you think about it in the dark of the night, you know that death is something that you've not experienced before. And it, ironically, scares the life out of you. But what do? You distract yourself. Like the people, most of the kuffar, when they have problems, what do? It's as though they think that they will find the answer to their problems, the solutions to their problems at the bottom of the bottle. So they drink and drink and drink, but they do not drink their problems away. The problems remain. وَيَبْقَى كَذَلِكَ الْعَارِ وَالشَّيْنِ. And the shame remains for them, and the pain. When they come to after intoxication, all of that is still there and now more, as well as them doing damage to their body. They are enormous sinners on top of being kuffar. So they try to distract themselves. This poet said, you put up obstacles in the way. You have things to look forward to try to distract you from death while not prioritizing the religious matters. Many people are like that. When you talk to them about death, they become uncomfortable, as though to say, okay, stop now, stop talking about it now. Yeah, we get it, Ibn al-Jawzi said, what means, you, how strange your affair is, O one who is certain of something yet forgets it, who knows the harm of a situation yet plunges into it. You know that something is haram, but still, because you find this ecstasy within it, this enjoyment of it, whether it's eating haram meat or pork while surrounded by a group of friends, and that's what is the catalyst, because you like to be in their company. You don't want to feel left out, so you eat the haram. Or you are in the company of these people, and the nafs, it finds it delectable for you to speak about others, even though you know it's haram. But you might speak about them, or you don't speak about them. You just sit there among them, which is also not permissible, and you listen, because they're speaking about that person that once harmed you. They're speaking about that one person that you do not like, that one person that you thinks is better than you. So now they're being spoken about. Their name is being tarnished. Their name is being put in the mud, and your nafs is loving it. Yet you know that this is haram, but you continue to plunge into it head first until you are submerged. And like this, other matters. Like this, the matter of acquiring the haram, you know that it is not permissible, but you tell yourself, but this is my earning. You tell yourself, I've got mouths to feed. Ajibun amruk. That you would continue on this path while knowing that it is something that is not accepted by Allah Ta'ala, while you know that you only have perhaps 40 years to live, or 60 years to live, or 70 years to live, or 1 hour to live, yet you continue. Muttakilan ala rahmatillah, saying, Allah will forgive me, Allah will forgive me, Allahu Ghafurur Rahim, while continuing to sin. Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil. You fear people while Allah is most deserving of your fear. You do things to please the people, even if that means disobeying Allah. Ayna aqluk? Where is your sense? Where is your mind? How would I and how would you choose to please the people out of fear of it being awkward, not obeying them? How is it that one of us would seek to please a person and fear upsetting them if we did not obey them in what is sinful? Yet we do not fear sometimes, or we forget the punishment of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, or we remember it and say to ourselves, I'll repent later. Allah, who owns the heavens and the earths, Allah, under whose ownership falls every little drop of rain and every grain of sand. Would the intellectual person choose to disobey the Lord of the universe, or rather fear one of the creations, and hence end up obeying the creation and disobeying Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala? Ibn al-Jawzi said, تغلبك نفسك على ما تظن ولا تغلبها على ما تستيقن. Your soul, your nafs, overcomes you, it beats you regarding what you assume, yet you do not overcome it concerning what you are certain of. You're certain of death. But although you're certain of death, although we are certain of death, we do not have the strength, most of us, we do not have the strength to push our nafs in the right direction, to straighten it up, although we know something is certain. Whereas now, when there is something that is not certain, something worldly, something that would yield pleasure, enjoyment, or wasting of time, something that we are not sure, will we attain it or will we not attain it, we find that we have not been able to tame the nafs or overcome it when it comes to that, when it comes to stopping the nafs from going that way. Rather, the nafs overcomes us. When we know that there is something certain and we are not able to bring the nafs to it, we are not able to reprimand the nafs and give it the correct treatment, although death is certain. Yet it pulls us towards something that is not certain. فَحَسْبُنَ اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. Ibn al-Jawzi said, أَعْجَبُ الْعَجَائِبِ سُرُورُكَ بِغُرُورِكَ وَسَهْوُكَ فِي لَهْوِكَ عَمَّا قَدْ خُبِّئَ لَكَ. He said, the most astonishing of wonders is your joy in your delusion and your heedlessness in your distraction about what has been prepared for you. That this is the most astonishing thing, that you are deluded, yet you are in jest. You are dancing and prancing around, happy in your delusion. And you are heedless and reckless in your distraction. Never has there been a person so blind, distracted away from what has been prepared for you. He said, تَغْتَرُّ بِصِحَّتِكَ وَتَنْسَى دُنُوَ السَّقَمِ وَتَفْرَحُ بِعَافِيَتِكَ غَافِلًا عَنْ قُرْبِ الْأَلَمِ. You are deceived by your health. As fit as a fiddle you may be able to lift a very large amount, a heavy amount of weights, or run a mile in under 10 minutes, or you are able to stretch, and you are able to. You are very strong, but your health is deceiving you. You may not even be a person who is very muscular, but you are not afflicted with the common ailments of today, the illnesses and the conditions, whether it be in the lungs, in the gut, to do with the heart, the brain, the back, whether it's cancer or diabetes. You may not be afflicted with any of these things, yet you take your health for granted. You are deceived by your health, forgetting the nearness of the sickness. The sickness is coming. Old age is coming as the hours tick by and the days roll over and the months fold and the years slowly but surely go by. You are deceived by your health, forgetting the nearness of sickness, and you rejoice in your well-being, heedless of the proximity of pain. A time will soon come when most of us, if we are not in pain now, we will be in pain. Does one not take the lesson of their elderly parents or grandparents, if not their own, then the grandparents of others, afflicted with a pain in the knee, or a pain in the chest, or a weakness in their hearing, or a lack of vision? Forgetfulness, such that it becomes a real problem. All of these things, people before us have been afflicted with them. And it is likely that we also shall share these attributes with them. So why the heedlessness? Why the recklessness? Why would a person not prepare? Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah said, لقد أراك مصرع غيرك مصرعك وأبدى مضجع سواك قبل الممات مضجعك وقد شغلك نيل لذاتك عن ذكر خراب ذاتك. He said, indeed, the death of others has shown you your own death. When you see the death of somebody else, that makes you think, oh, I'm going to die as well. That's actually going to happen to me. When you bury a friend or a mother or a sibling, you think to yourself, not only am I going to miss them, but this is my abode too in the near or distant future. لقد أراك مصرع غيرك مصرعك. Someone else's death shows you your own death, makes you think about the fact that you will also descend, be lowered into the grave. وأبدى مضجع سواك قبل الممات مضجعك. And the burial place of others before their demise has revealed to you your own resting place. The graveyards. You go to the graveyards and you see empty graves. These empty graves will be filled, perhaps by you and perhaps by other people. Looking even at the empty graves that will be filled by others, you are reminded about your own grave. وقد شغلك نيل لذاتك عن ذكر خراب ذاتك. Yet, the pursuit of your desires distracts you from contemplating the ruin of your own self. Then he mentioned some verses of poetry. Ibn al-Jawzi said, كأنك لم تسمع بأخبار من مضى ولم تر في الباقين ما يصنع الدهر فإن كنت لا تدري فتلك ديارهم محاها مجال الريح بعدهم والقبر. He said, it is as though you have never heard of the tales of those who have passed away, nor witnessed what time does to those who remain. If you do not know, then look at their abodes. The winds have erased them after their departure, leaving only graves. كم رأيت صاحب منزل ما نزل لحده حتى نزل وكم شاهدت والي قصر وليه عدوه لما عزل. How many have I seen who lived in grand homes only to descend to their graves before they ever descended from their houses. Meaning, how many people have I seen that were still at home? They didn't exit their houses and they died in their houses. ما نزلوا من بيوتهم ما نزلوا من ديارهم ما خرجوا منها وقد نزلوا إلى قبورهم. And how many rulers of palaces have I seen whose authority passed to their enemies once they were deposed, once they died, or once these rulers were made to abdicate or killed, their palaces and their authority were passed on to their enemies. فيا من كل لحظة فيا من كل لحظة إلى هذا يسري وفعله فعل من لا يفهم ولا يدري. So, oh, one who advances with every movement towards such an end, yet acts like one who neither understands nor perceives. وكيف تنام العين وهي قريرة ولم تدر من أي المحلين تنزل. How can the eye sleep content and at ease when it knows not in which of the two places it will reside? It knows not will it be in hell or in paradise. In the next chapter, Ibn al-Jawzi speaks about drawing near to temptation, being close to temptation. He says, من قارب الفتنة بعدت عنه السلامة. الله أكبر. من قارب الفتنة بعدت عنه السلامة. Whoever draws near to temptation, safety becomes distant from them. من قارب الفتنة بعدت عنه السلامة. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. A person who delays their prayers towards the end of the time, then when there are about 5 or 10 minutes left, they say, let me go and make wudu to pray. The more they delay the prayer, the more the chance of them missing the prayer and becoming an enormous sinner. So Ibn al-Jawzi said, whoever draws near to temptation, they just say, just 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. I'm just watching this. I'm just doing this. I'm just eating this. I'm just helping with this. I'll go in 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and then there are only 5 minutes left. In that time, they need to perform wudu and they need to pray. This person will not be able to pray the sunnah rak'ahs, so they've already missed out on that. But they will not be able to pray and make wudu all in 5 minutes if they want to pray a perfect prayer. So they are drawing towards temptation. A person who accompanies people who talk in an impermissible way about others. They commit ghibah, they commit namimah, they commit other sins. They laugh and they lie, they joke and they insult. Whoever draws towards temptation, because they're funny sometimes, they make me laugh, and after all, they are my friends. We did grow up together. And what? I don't want to be alone now. Why would I want to be alone? It's not the norm to be alone. They might even say it's not good to be alone. I want to feel involved in society. I want to have friends also. The one who is drawn in by this temptation of bad company, ba'udat anhu salama, well-being and safety begins to distance itself from them. Even though a person may say, well, I'm not actually going to do the haram. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to drink it, or I'm not going to consume those drugs. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to sit with them. Whoever draws near to temptation, ba'udat anhu salama, safety becomes distant from them. وَمَنِ ادَّعَى الصَّبْرَ وُكِّلَ إِلَى نَفْسِهِ. And whoever claims patience is left to rely on their own strength. Whoever draws near to temptation, safety becomes distant from them. And whoever claims patience in this, whoever says, no, I won't fall for it. Don't worry about me. I'm strong. I won't do it. I won't say it. I won't do those haram things. I'll be patient. Then this person is left to rely on their own strength. But now the devil has his foot in the door. Tabarakallah. من قارب الفتنة بعدت عنه السلامة. ومن ادعى الصبر في هذه الحالة، من ادعى الصبر وكل إلى نفسه. Subhanallah. How strong the nafs, or how strong a person has to be to fight the nafs. When it's narrated, أعداء أعدائك نفسك التي بين جنبيك. The Salaf would say, our pious predecessors, radiyallahu anhum, they would say, your most vicious enemy, your most severe enemy is your nafs that is between your two sides. Your soul that calls you towards relaxing, that calls you towards pleasure and laziness. Ibn al-Jawzi continued, he said, وَرُبَّ نَظْرَةٍ لَمْ تُنَاظِرْ وَأَحَقُّ الْأَشْيَاءِ بِالضَّبْطِ وَالْقَهْرِ اللِّسَانُ وَالْعَيْنُ. He said, how often a glance has led to ruin. A person says, I'm just going to have a look. I'm not going to involve myself. I'm just going to have a look. That's all. How often a glance has led to ruin. The most deserving things to restrain and control are the tongue and the eye. The Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam said, أكثر خطايا ابن آدم من لسانه. The most sins that a person commits, is with the tongue. In a hadith, the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam mentioned that every day the organs, the different parts of the body, the hands, the feet, and so on, they call out to the tongue, pleading with it, urging it to behave, urging it not to utter what Allah has made impermissible. They plead with it, they say, we do not want to enter the fire because of you. Have mercy on us. Tabarakallah. And the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam said, Kullu aynin zaniyah. Most of the eyes, they look the forbidden, desirous look. Most men look the forbidden, lustful, desirous look at those to whom they are not allowed to look in that way. And likewise for women. This is a part of temptation, because the tongue loves to move. It's so easy for it to move as well. It can move very fast. It can make different sounds. It can express so many different things. All of the things that are in the heart, the tongue can express in one way or another. Speaking about other people, telling people their name, telling people their interests, telling people what they were up to, telling people about things that are private to their life. The tongue, it can move really quickly. Like a serpent it can be, and it can light fires wherever it goes. Tabarakallah. Tabarakallah. Perhaps a blessing in disguise for some people would be for them to lose their voice, for them to lose their tongue. Subhanallah. Not controlling the tongue, having a wild tongue, it shows that that person has a lot of filth in their heart, because what appears on the tongue is only a consequence and a result of what is in the heart. If the heart has ignorance in it, ignorance will make manifest on the tongue. If the heart has jealousy within it and hate, if the heart has ungratefulness within it, it will show on the tongue. It will show on the tongue will not be able to resist for most people because they have not tamed it. Some of the scholars describe the tongue as a beast. They said, "Jirmuhu saghir," its size is small, wa jurmuhu kabir, but its crime is grave. إن العبد لا يتكلم بالكلمة لا يرى بها بأسا يهوي بها في النار 70 خريفا. The slave may utter with the tongue a statement, and he deems the statement to be harmless because of his ignorance. But that same tongue, what it uttered, will land a person in the depths of hell. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna aqwaman min ummati yakfuruna bil Qur'ani wa la yash'urun." Some people in my nation, they will blaspheme against the Qur'an without even feeling it, without even realizing. This is the way of the tongue. It says, and it gets a person into a lot of trouble. Ibn al-Jawzi continued, he said, فإياك إياك أن تغتر بعزمك على ترك الهوى مع مقاربة الفتنة فإن الهوى مكايد. He said, beware of being deceived by your resolve to abandon desires while approaching temptation. For desires are traps. So be very careful. Don't say, I am strong, and I will not fall for the desires while approaching temptation. A person who says to himself that I won't fall into that thing, that's not me, those are not my values, those are not my habits, that's not what I'm used to. I won't fall into that matter. But then if you sit in that place where that matter is going on, it's going to pull you. As-sahib sahib. The one that you accompany, whether it's a person or a practice, it pulls. As-sahib, the companion. Sahib, it pulls you. وَمَن تَجَالَسْ تَوَارَثْ. And if you accompany a person or a practice, you eventually inherit that person's characteristics, some of them at least, or you inherit those practices. Sometimes it's words even that they say, or ways in which they react, because you're getting this, you might call it positive reinforcement from them. And so you start to do that as well. He said, فَإِيَّاكَ وَإِيَّاكَ. How strong do you think you are? You think that you're going to be able to withstand the pressure socially and emotionally? And for how long? Subhanallah. They say if you live with 6 or 7 people, each one of them who is a genius, each one of whom is a genius, your level of intelligence, it rises. Because you live with them. You see the way that they think, the way that they work, the way that they organize themselves. If you live with a group of alcoholics, then it's very likely that you will become one of them. If you live with 7 failures, you are very likely to become the 8th. And like this, if you accompany people who smoke or do drugs, they smoke haram substances, and they inject themselves with what Allah Ta'ala made impermissible. If they do that, eventually that will be you. If it's not you, then at the very least, this person who accompanies them may begin to be more lenient with their practice. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. All of it is danger. So he said, فَإِيَّاكَ إِيَّاكَ أَن تَغْتَرَّ بِعَزْمِكَ. Don't be fooled by your resolve. Don't think that you're really strong. For people who are more handsome than you, prettier than you, fitter and healthier than you, stronger than you, more intelligent than you, have passed but have fallen to failure. فَإِيَّاكَ إِيَّاكَ. Don't go close to temptation relying on your own resolve. I'm strong. They can't pull me into that. He said, فَإِنَّ الْهَوَى مَكَايِدْ. Desires are traps. وَكَمْ مِنْ شُجَاعٍ فِي صَفِّ الْحَرْبِ وَكَمْ مِنْ شُجَاعٍ فِي صَفِّ الْحَرْبِ اغْتِيلَ. How many a brave warrior in the battlefield was ambushed. فَأَتَاهُ مَا لَمْ يَحْتَسِبْ مِمَّنْ يَأْنَفُ النَّظَرِ إِلَيْهِ. How many a brave warrior in the battlefield was ambushed and met an unexpected blow from someone they would not even deign to look at. وَاذْكُرْ حَمْزَةَ مَعَ وَحْشِيٍّ. Do you remember Hamza radiyallahu anhu, the uncle and brother from breastfeeding of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam? He was killed by Wahshi ibn Harb, the Ethiopian freed slave. He hurled a spear towards our master Hamza radiyallahu anhu. And this was a fatal blow. Hamza radiyallahu anhu did not expect that. Even though he was a mighty warrior. So what Ibn al-Jawzi is saying here, even if you are mighty, do not be complacent. Do not go towards temptation. Then Ibn al-Jawzi said, فَتَبَصَّرْ وَلَا تَشِمْ كُلَّ بَرْقٍ رُبَّ بَرْقٍ فِيهِ صَوَاعِقُ الْحَيْنِ وَاغْضُضِ الطَّرْفَ تَسْتَرِحْ مِنْ غَرَامٍ تكتسي فيه ثوب ذل وشين فبلاء الفتى موافقة النفس سوى بعده الهوى طموح العين. He said in these verses of poetry, reflect deeply and do not chase after every flash of lightning, for some flashes bring destructive storms. Lower your gaze, and you will find peace from the passions that clothe you in garments of humiliation and disgrace. The trial of a person is in obeying their soul, and the beginning of desire is the wandering eye. The trial of a person is, will they obey their soul? Will they succumb to the desires that their nafs, their soul, is presenting to them? Will they bend at the knee, as it were, to these desires? Will it cripple them? Will the soul and these desires cripple them into becoming a type of slave, if you will, obeying the soul, the nafs's every command? And the beginning of desire in many cases is the wandering eye. More literally, the wandering eye looking at the haram, but also the wandering eye looking at what others have. بعض الناس يتمنون أن يكون لهم ما عند غيرهم لا يقنعون. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم القناعة كنز لا يفنى. Many people, their eye wanders. Their eye wanders to what others possess, what others have. This is because they are not content. The Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam said, contentment, it's as though it's a treasure that will not be annihilated. It's as though it's an everlasting treasure. Contentment is an everlasting treasure, because it remains with a person and it is enough for them, just as anyone who has a treasure financially, this is enough for them. Their eye doesn't wander. But it's when people قد فتحت عليهم الدنيا, when they have the world opened up to them, and they do not follow the advice of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. When the Prophet said, لا تنظر إلى من فوقك في الدنيا, he said, يا أبا ذر لا تنظر إلى من فوقك في الدنيا. Do not look to those who have more than you in the worldly matters. Don't look to those who have more money than you in the worldly matters, and they have bigger houses and more cars, and they are more successful, they have more money. Do not look at them. This is not something praised. Rather, look at those who have more than you in the religious sense. Look at those who are praying more optional prayers than you. Look at those who pray all their prayers on time. Look at those who are more knowledgeable than you. Look at those who are better in their treatment of their family members, keeping their ties. Look at these honorable people. Try to be like them, and do not be like the despicable people. Ya Allah. The next chapter, Ibn al-Jawzi says, أعظم المعاقبة, among the greatest of punishments. He says, أعظم المعاقبة ألا يحس المعاقب بالعقوبة. The greatest or among the greatest of punishments, is for the punished not to feel the punishment. وأشد من ذلك أن يقع السرور بما هو عقوبة. And worse than that is to find joy in what is a punishment. كالفرح بالمال الحرام, such as rejoicing over unlawful wealth. والتمكن من الذنوب, or indulging in sins. ومن هذه حاله لا يفوز بطاعة. A person in this state will never completely succeed in obedience. There are people that are being punished, but they don't know they're being punished. Allah Ta'ala يقول سنستدرجهم من حيث لا يعلمون. Al-Istidraj refers to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala giving the misguided people or the sinful people more of the world, which deludes them into thinking that they perhaps are accepted slaves of Allah, that Allah blesses by giving them more because they are such good people or because they have such good hearts, even though they commit sins and they, for example, commit major sins, but Allah generously gives them and gives them and gives them. They might tell themselves, it's because I'm kind, it's because I have good manners, it's because I sometimes take care of my parent, it's because I have a good heart. And they do not even know that they are being punished. That's one of the greatest punishments. ألا يحس المعاقب بعقوبة. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بعض الناس شغلهم الله تعالى بما لا يعنيهم، وهذا من أعظم العقوبات. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has busied some people with what does not concern the hereafter, or with what does not concern them in terms of safety in the hereafter. One of us asks ourselves, am I one of these people whom Allah has busied away from working for the hereafter? Am I a person whose time Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has filled with matters that are not related to positive consequences in the hereafter, or staying away from sins? What have I been busied with? What is my day filled with? Am I obeying Allah throughout my day? How many opportunities do I find or make even to obey Allah Ta'ala, even when I'm at work or in the middle of the night? Have I been busied away? Am I working in a job where I am not praying the obligatory prayers? Am I working in a job where I am delivering things that are haram, that I know I'm delivering and they are haram? Am I working for a food outlet where they provide wine and I carry it out to the customers? What is it that I have been busied with? Al-Hafiz An-Nawawi said, إن الاشتغال بالعلم من أعظم أو من أحسن ما تنفق فيه نفائس الأوقات أو كما قال. Al-Hafiz al-Nawawi said that engaging in the religious knowledge, إن الاشتغال بالعلم, writing it down, memorizing it, and then teaching it, and then thinking about it, and then seeking more of it, and more of it, and more of it, and implementing it, and seeking more of it until one dies. This al-ishtighal bil-ilm, this practicing the knowledge, engaging in the knowledge, is among the best things that a person could spend their precious time on. من أعظم ما تنفق فيه نفائس الأوقات. فأين المنفقون؟ أين المشتغلون بعلم أهل السنة والجماعة? Where are those spenders that spend this precious time in acquiring more than the personal obligatory knowledge and then teaching it? إن الله وملائكته وحتى الحيتان في البحر وحتى النملة في جحرها ليصلون على معلم الناس الخير. The angels, إن الملائكة وأهل السماوات وأهل الأرض وحتى الحوت في البحر والنملة في جحرها ليصلون على معلم الناس الخير. The angels, those that reside in the sky, the angels, and those, the animals on the earth, and even the fish in the sea, and even the ants in their burrows, ask Allah Ta'ala to forgive the one that teaches the knowledge of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, that teaches the Islamic knowledge. من يرد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين. The one whom Allah eternally wills something good for. It shows as a good sign for them. What is it? That Allah busied them with knowledge, gave them knowledge, gave them the correct understanding of that knowledge, and then gave them the ability to implement that knowledge. So we do not want to be people who are busied away from our hereafter. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to fill our time with things that are beneficial for us. بما يعنينا ولا بما لا يعنينا. What concerns our hereafter, what is related to our hereafter, in staying away from sins and doing the good deeds, as opposed to the opposite. He said, rahimahullah, أعظم المعاقبة ألا يحس المعاقب بالعقوبة. Among the greatest punishments is for the punished not to feel the punishment. Allahu Akbar. There are so many happy fools that think that ignorance is bliss. In this life it may seem like that, but in the hereafter it will not be bliss. Subhanallah. These are the people that do not know, and they do not know that they do not know. فَإِنَّهُ الْجَهْلُ الْمُرَكَّبُ, compound ignorance. When some people start learning how to do the religious acts properly, or let's go even further back, when they learn the correct belief in Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, they say, but I've never heard this before. This is something strange to me. I was never taught this. I always thought such and such. When they're taught something about the rules of the religion, they find it difficult to implement. Why? Imagine a group of people living in the jungle, and there are no rules in the jungle. They dress the way they want or they do not. They eat what they want or they do not. They engage with the other people in the way that they want or not. These people do not abide by any rules. So as soon as you set some rules, they will feel uncomfortable. Now we have to tread carefully. There are rules now. There are parameters now. There are red lines now that we cannot cross. So of course, the person who has never learned the Islamic knowledge properly, they will naturally feel like there are restrictions, because there are. This person was living in a perceived unrestricted way, thinking that the rules of the religion are something that they are not. So of course this person is going to be thinking that it's difficult. Whereas now they live in a way where they think that everything is hunky-dory, everything is fine, and they are happy fools. It's when they learn the seriousness of the matter that they understand. And for some people, at first it can seem too much for them, because they do not understand how it could be. They do not comprehend, because they're not used to it, how it could be that we would be accountable for this and this and this and this and this and this and this after they had been living a life like a fool. He said, وَأَشَدُّ مِنْ ذَلِكَ أَنْ يَقَعَ السُّرُورُ بِمَا هُوَ عُقُوبَةٌ. And worse than that is that some people find joy in what is, in fact, a punishment. Subhanallah. مبعدون عن علم الدين وعن العمل بعلم الدين وأداء الفرائض واجتناب المحرمات ومسرورون بحالهم فحسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned that for all the joys and pleasures that the sinful people in this life practiced and experienced, when they are dipped into the fire of hell for just a moment, that one dip, will obliterate any memory, any atom's weight worth of pleasure that they had experienced. It will be annihilated. They will be asked, did you ever feel any pleasure after being dipped into hell for a moment? Did you ever experience in the world any pleasure? They would say, Wallahi Rabbina, by Allah, I never experienced any pleasure before. Ya Latif. Such as rejoicing over unlawful wealth or indulging in sins. غافلون. عميان. A person in this state will never succeed in obedience. A person in this state, how would they obey Allah Ta'ala? When they're happy with sin, Hasbi Allah. Ibn al-Jawzi said, وَإِنِّي تَدَبَّرْتُ أَحْوَالَ أَكْثَرِ الْعُلَمَاءِ وَالْمُتَزَهِدِينَ. I have contemplated the states of most scholars and ascetics, people who are distant from the worldly matters. They eat little, sleep little, worship a lot. He said, فَرَأَيْتُهُمْ فِي عُقُوبَاتٍ لَا يُحِسُّونَ بِهَا. He said, and I found them, and he's talking about the bad scholars here and the bad ascetics here who failed. فَرَأَيْتُهُمْ فِي عُقُوبَاتٍ لَا يُحِسُّونَ بِهَا. He said, I found them, most of them, I found them subject to punishments from Allah that they are unaware of. وَمُعْظَمُهَا مِنْ قِبَلِ طَلَبِهِمْ لِلرِّئَاسَةِ. He said, and most of these punishments stem from their pursuit of status. فَالْعَالِمُ مِنْهُمْ يَغْضَبُ إِنْ رُدَّ عَلَيْهِ خَطْوَةً. And the scholar, the sinful scholar, who has run after the world, becomes angry in his opinion if his opinion is contradicted. وَالْوَاعِظْ مُتَصَنِّعٌ بِوَعْظِهِ. And likewise the preacher performs his sermons with affectation. He's fake. It's as though he's acting. He's not actually advising people for the sake of Allah. He's acting. It's theater. وَالْمُتَزَهِّدْ مُنَافِقٌ أَوْ مُرَائٍ. And the ascetic, supposed ascetic, falls into hypocrisy or showing off. فأول عقوباتهم إعراضهم عن الحق شغلا بالخلق. And the first of their punishments is their turning away from obeying Allah Ta'ala and being preoccupied with the creation instead. ومن خفي عقوباتهم سلب حلاوة المناجات ولذة التعبد. وَلَذَّةِ التَّعَبُّدِ. He said, among their hidden punishments is the loss of the sweetness of their worship. They lose that sweetness. حلاوة التعبد. And yes, the pleasure of worship. إِلَّا رِجَالٌ مُؤْمِنُونَ وَنِسَاءٌ مُؤْمِنَاتٌ يَحْفَظُ اللَّهُ بِهِمُ الْأَرْضَ بَوَاطِنُهُمْ كَظَوَاهِرِهِمْ بَلْ أَجْلَى وَسَرَائِرُهُمْ كَعَلَانِيَتِهِمْ بَلْ أَحْلَى وَهِمَمُهُمْ عِنْدَ الثُّرَيَّا بَلْ أَعْلَى إن عرفوا تنكروا وإن رؤيت لهم كرامة أنكروا فالناس في غلاتهم وهم في قطع فلاتهم تحبهم بقاع الأرض وتفرح بهم أملاك السماء نسأل الله عز وجل التوفيق لاتباعهم وأن يجعلنا من أتباعهم. He said, however, there remain true believers, men and women, because of whom Allah preserves the earth. Isn't it narrated that it is because of the Abdal that the rain falls? The 40 Abdal in Ash-Sham, each one of them in some way like Ibrahim alayhi salam. Because of them the rain falls. These people, their inner selves are like their outer selves, or even purer. Their private deeds are like their public deeds, or even better. Their aspirations reach beyond the stars, or even higher. If they are recognized, they remain humble. And if their virtues are seen, they deny them. They say, perhaps I was insincere. While people are engrossed in trivialities, they traverse the vast deserts of devotion. The earth's lands love them, and the angels of the heavens rejoice over them. Angel Jibreel alayhi salam, when he gains knowledge that a certain person among the slaves of Allah on earth, man or woman, has attained the acceptance of Allah, Jibreel calls out to all of the angels in the skies and says, Inna Allah yuhibbu fulanan aw fulana fa'ahibbuhu or fa'ahibbuha. Indeed, such and such person has attained the acceptance of Allah and has become a pious slave of Allah, so love him, O angels. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us success in following their path and to include us among their followers. We'll finish there for today, inshaAllah ta'ala. Let's say La ilaha illallah and as-salah ala nabi. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim.